My stepmother stole all the food people had donated to us and called social services to say our kids were starving. And now, she's surrounded by police. I'm shaking. So much has happened lately. My husband drives a truck, and his work slows down a lot during the winter, so much that we had to take out a loan just to pay the utility bills. On top of that, I've been struggling with postpartum depression ever since my second baby was born almost 6 months ago. And just 2 weeks ago, we found out I'm pregnant again. In a moment of desperation, I made a post on a local food pantry forum. The response was overwhelming. We got so much food I cried for days. I went to see my doctor, and we agreed I needed help. So I started on antidepressants. I came to terms with the idea of another baby, even if it was earlier than we planned, and honestly, I started feeling excited. I was finally in a good place again. Yesterday morning, I had my first OB appointment. They couldn't see the baby on the ultrasound, just the gestational sac, measuring around 8 weeks. My doctor was very encouraging and said it might just be too soon to see anything yet, but she also mentioned the possibility of a blighted ovum. That basically means something went wrong, and the baby never developed. There's no clear reason. Just horrible, random luck. I know it probably sounds silly, especially since I was so overwhelmed at first by the idea of being pregnant again, but it shattered me. My husband and I sat in the car for a long time, crying, before heading to my mom's to pick up the kids. But when we got home, all the pantry food was gone. Every bit of it. All that was left was some dry pasta, sauce, and a few cans of tuna. The baby formula, the food, the diapers, gone. The wipes too. All the fresh veggies from the fridge, gone. There was only some milk and a bit of leftovers. The doors were still locked. No sign of a break-in. And the only person who has a key is my dad. Honestly, I don't think he had anything to do with it. But when I told my stepmother about the donations, her reaction was disgusting. She started screaming that we had no business having kids if we couldn't support them, and she actually demanded that we hand the kids over to them right away. I was stunned. She's been difficult before, like the time we asked her to babysit so we could go to the movies, and she said, "Parents don't get to do that. Babies come first." But this was a whole new level. My dad stepped in and told her to shut up, and we left, still in shock but thinking that maybe, that was it. Of course, I called her yesterday to confront her. She denied everything. I called my dad, and he confirmed that she hadn't brought any food into the house, and he didn't think she would. But he asked me not to file a police report until he'd had a chance to speak with her. I thought, maybe she just threw everything away somewhere. But I still went ahead and filed the report, because even if we can't prove it was her, it was clearly a deliberate attempt to put our kids at risk. Thank God, this morning at 10, social services knocked on my door. They said they'd received a report the day before about unsafe living conditions, especially lack of food. I showed them the police report, along with what was left of a can of formula and some baby food from the diaper bag. The woman seemed genuinely understanding as I explained the situation. I told her the food came from friends, not strangers from the internet. Then she asked something that really threw me. She wanted to know if there was any family member who could care for the kids temporarily, in case they had to be removed. I didn't expect that. That's not the kind of thing I thought Child Protective Services would ask right away. I made it very clear, if that ever had to happen, I'd want my kids to be with my mom, not my dad, given everything going on. She assured me she didn't think it would come to that. But she said she'd follow up in about a week just to make sure things were stable. I feel completely unglued. I never had a good relationship with that woman growing up, but she always seemed to mean well when it came to the kids. She used to adore them. She used to be helpful. They even helped with daycare for my oldest when I was working. They bought formula for him when he was a baby and we were really struggling. I don't want to believe she did this. But honestly, I just don't see another explanation. We've gone ahead and changed the locks. But I have no idea what to do next. My older son was supposed to spend the weekend with them, which obviously isn't happening now. But he's 4. He doesn't understand why. I'd truly appreciate any advice anyone might have. If there's something you want to make sure I see, feel free to send me a private message. I truly appreciate all the support, and every message I've received in my inbox has been such a welcome distraction while I try to put everything back in order. Today, I contacted social services. It was an interesting call. Without getting into too much detail, the case is real. The supervisor I spoke to was extremely kind and professional. I explained that I was calling because someone had stolen all our food right before the visit, and I just wanted to make sure the woman who showed up yesterday was, in fact, a real caseworker. Because when she appeared, I was completely shaken. The supervisor was really surprised when I told her the woman had just shown up unannounced, because apparently, it's their policy to always call ahead to schedule a time that works for the family, unless it's an emergency involving abuse. We talked a little more about the visit, and she agreed with me that several things had been handled in a very unprofessional way. I was able to confirm that the follow-up visit will happen next Friday, and she told me she's assigning a new caseworker to us. She also said she'd look into the previous agent's behavior, but whether that actually happens, I don't know. Still, I'm relieved we'll have someone new. She told me that as long as there's food in the house during the next visit, the case will be closed, because everything else seemed perfectly fine. She did recommend that I have the children's medical records ready so they can be added to the file. So today, I went to the pediatrician and asked for 3 copies of their records. On Monday, I'll go to the social services office to drop off the paperwork and pick up a copy of the report. 1 copy will go in our fireproof safe at home, another in the safe at my mom's house, and eventually, we'll transfer it to a bank safety deposit box. The most disappointing part of all of this has been my dad. He absolutely refuses to believe that my stepmother did any of this. He's called me several times, furious, telling me how much I've hurt her with my accusations and demanding that I apologize to her. Eventually, I told him that on Monday I'll pick up the report from social services and then call him to set up a time to talk, but without the hamburger thief. Thank you, by the way, to the brilliant user who came up with that nickname. I can't find your comment now in the chaos of my last post, but I love it. My poor husband has been out of town for work all week while all of this was happening. I felt like every time I called him, it was just to deliver more bad news, from the OB appointment, to the break-in, to the social services visit. Even today, I barely got to talk to him, between all the phone calls, medical stuff, and arguing with my dad. But this man, this angel, came home tonight and stopped on the way to buy me a $2 bath bomb, using money from his own food budget. He ran a hot bath, lit candles, put me in the tub, tucked the kids into bed, massaged my feet, and even painted my toenails. Then he held me while I cried and celebrated with me when I told him about the overwhelming support we've received for sharing our story. He specifically asked me to tell all of you how deeply grateful he is that you were here for me when he couldn't be. He's being a real hero right now, doing the laundry and washing the dishes that piled up this week while I sit on the couch watching Game of Thrones and scrolling Reddit. Hi. I am honestly just so thankful. This community is amazing. I probably won't be able to reply to every comment, but feel free to message me if you'd like. Having people from this sub to talk to helped me more than I can say. You are all the best. If I'm feeling up for it this weekend, maybe I'll share a few childhood stories about the hamburger thief, and why, deep down, I really shouldn't have been surprised that she tried to ruin my life, with food. But according to her, we had threatened her, and she was so scared that all she wanted was to leave, but we wouldn't let her. The package, she said, was in her car because she was worried it would get stolen off the porch in such a dangerous neighborhood, and she just wanted to protect it. But she couldn't bring it inside because we had changed the locks. The social worker repeated that story to the police. She also said the reason she didn't leave when we asked her to was because we wouldn't let her examine the kids. Once the officer saw our children and confirmed that no one had been hit, the thief said she must have been mistaken, but she still didn't understand why we had left the house that morning if we hadn't done anything wrong. The police called my mom and confirmed the time we had arrived and left her house. Then they made the thief return the package. They didn't formally charge her with mail theft, because the box hadn't been opened. Still, they made it very clear that I had told them she was not welcome on our property, and that if she came back, she would be arrested for trespassing. They all left after that. Then the police asked us a few more uncomfortable questions about how we treat our kids. I'm sure it's just part of the process when someone reports child abuse, but honestly, I just wanted it all to be over. So now, my mom is going to stay at our house for a few days, to help keep an eye on the packages and to make sure I'm not alone in case that woman comes back. I took the rest of the day to breathe and think about how to move forward, because the officers didn't leave until almost 2 in the afternoon. First thing Monday morning, I'm heading to the office to file an official complaint against that social worker. And my dad? Still silent. The package? It was a can of formula that someone had sent with express delivery on Saturday. So if that was one of you, thank you. We received it. Almost safely. Update 3. Well, yesterday was a wild one. I was able to get a temporary restraining order, both against the hamburger thief and her little social worker buddy. The supervisor from social services is working with us to make sure this woman faces all the legal consequences and loses her job. Apparently, this isn't even the first time she's had an incident like this. That makes me think she might not even know the thief at all, maybe she's just another nosy busybody. The supervisor even gave me a list of attorneys I can reach out to if necessary, many of whom might take our case pro bono. As for the theft, today we received a ton of packages. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone who reached out to help us. Not everyone left their names, and I have no way of knowing who sent what, but seriously, thank you. A special shout out to the person who sent me bath bombs. I'm about to take a long, glorious soak as soon as I finish writing this update. Our next OB appointment is early tomorrow. We're hoping we can finally get some clarity about what's happening, so we'd really appreciate any good vibes, thoughts, prayers, or whatever you believe in, that you can send our way. We're trying to stay positive, but honestly, we're scared. Everything that woman did was the absolute last thing we needed right now. Update 4. I just accidentally deleted this whole post, so yes, I'm screaming internally right now. Anyone who's read my posts knows that the hamburger thief doesn't think I'm fit to raise children, so much so that she tried to have them taken from us. In case you're wondering, the social services follow-up visit went great, and the case is closed. We went to our follow-up appointment about the possible blighted ovum and found out that the baby was healthy and fine. Turns out the pregnancy just wasn't as far along as we had thought. We were able to see a strong, clear heartbeat, and we left the office with photos. We felt confident that the only issue had been doing the ultrasound too early. So my husband decided to take a job out of state this weekend. This morning, I went back to the OB because I was having some light cramping, only to find out my baby no longer had a heartbeat. I haven't even been able to reach my husband to tell him yet. I'm planning to schedule a DNC when he returns, but if something happens before he gets back, he won't be here. And his trip is 10 hours away and can't even start until tomorrow morning. I'm scared and alone. Update 5. Hi, beautiful people. I'm so sorry I haven't updated sooner. Too much has happened. So buckle up, this is a long one. First, yes, I was able to get a restraining order against the hamburger thief with the help of social services. In the past few months, the original social worker also lost her job, because this wasn't the first time she abused her position. And the thief completely lost her mind in the most spectacular way. Details about the miscarriage. My pregnancy was a roller coaster. At the first ultrasound, as some of you remember, they thought it might be a blighted ovum. I came back a week later and saw a healthy fetus with a strong heartbeat. But there was a small spot that looked like a subchorionic hemorrhage. They scheduled another ultrasound 1 week later. I went alone, because my husband was working out of state. And that's when they found out the hemorrhage had grown, from being smaller than the baby to taking up more than half the uterus. And there was no heartbeat. My husband drives a truck, so I couldn't even reach him that day until after he was off the road. Because of the size of the hemorrhage, and the fact that I hadn't started bleeding, I needed a DNC to avoid sepsis. But I didn't want to schedule anything without my husband there. So I left the doctor's office and, in a moment of weakness I deeply regret, I called my dad. At first, he was an angel. He offered to watch the kids as long as I needed. Thankfully, I told him no, because the kids had already been staying with my mom since I was put on bed rest. During the call, I told him everything, what had happened, my medical situation, that I couldn't talk to my husband yet, and that I was handling everything alone. He told me to come to his house. And I told him flat out, the last person I wanted to see was the hamburger thief. He said he understood and left it at that. But of course, he told her everything. Naturally, she spent 6 hours blowing up my husband's phone, so when he finally finished his shift, instead of calling me like he normally would, he called her first. He thought someone had died. She had left him hundreds of missed calls. She answered the phone screaming that I was a murderer, that while he was out of town, I had gotten an abortion, and that apparently I'd been planning it for weeks. Of course, he knew it was all garbage and hung up on her. Then he called me. So I didn't even get the chance to tell him my side. I had to explain that the thief was a crazy witch and how she spun that whole disgusting story. I called my dad to tell him what she'd done, and from what I know, he was furious. He promised we'd never hear from her again. I scheduled the procedure for a week after the last ultrasound. Thankfully, by then, we had already installed the security cameras someone had kindly sent us, because when we got home, the place was destroyed. That lunatic broke a window with a golf club, which she must have bought just for this because no one in the family plays golf, and climbed in. She smashed the TV and the Xbox. She slashed our mattresses, including the kids, and our brand new couch. She gathered every piece of clothing she could find, ours and the kids, piled it in the living room, and doused it in bleach. Liters of it. She shattered anything fragile she could find with the golf club, dishes, windows, even the toilet. She threw the air conditioner out the window and broke it. But she didn't touch the food. I guess she did learn something. We got home and found her passed out on our front lawn, with the golf club in one hand and one of my wine bottles in the other. Drunk out of her mind. Screaming that I was a murderer who hated kids and was trying to take her grandkids away from her. She was dragging out every vowel like a cartoon villain. We're the kind of people who collect liquor in odd or decorative bottles, and every single one of them was shattered around her. I don't even know how many she drank and how many she just smashed, but she'd clearly had plenty. She didn't even get up. Just laid there yelling. I guess to make sure the whole neighborhood knew what a monster I am. My husband called the police while I sat there listening to her scream that I was a murderer, that I was going to hell, that it should have been me who died, not the baby, that she would have raised the baby better, and on and on and on. And I had just had a DNC. I had just lost a very wanted pregnancy. After 20 minutes of this, the police arrived. One officer went inside with my husband to document the damage. The other stayed outside with me, and with her. The cop listened to her insane monologue for a few minutes and then turned to me and asked, "Are you sure you want to press charges? I can arrest her for public intoxication and disorderly conduct. But there's no proof she did anything, right?" Well, all my windows were broken. She had a golf club in her hand. And that's my bottle collection, smashed to pieces, scattered all around her. But apparently, that's all circumstantial. No direct evidence. Let me tell you something, I live in the Bible Belt. Very conservative, southern U.S. It took me half a second to realize what was happening. That officer heard her anti-abortion rant and decided she was justified. And get this, are you ready? I told him I had a restraining order against her. Because she broke into my house, stole all our food, and tried to run me over while I was pregnant. He laughed in my face and said, "Well, you're not pregnant anymore." If my husband and the other officer hadn't walked out at that exact moment, I would have ended up in jail. I barely had time to scream, "I had a damn miscarriage," before my husband rushed to my side and pulled me away. The second cop took over immediately. He said they were taking the thief in right now, that this was the worst break-in he'd ever seen, damage-wise. He called the first officer an idiot for not cuffing her on the spot and shut down all that circumstantial nonsense. So, some officers do take restraining orders seriously, I guess. I gave my statement. My mom came to pick me up, and my husband stayed behind to deal with the rest. Eventually, my dad showed up, eyes finally open, and flat out refused to pay the thief's bail. The next day, after she sobered up and called him, he still said no. He and a few friends helped my husband clean the house. They replaced the windows with stronger ones, fixed the toilet, and even helped cover some of the furniture costs. It didn't replace everything, but it was a start. And we're rebuilding. Of course, the thief pled not guilty and had to go to trial. Our lawyer, paid for by my dad, submitted security footage from the cameras. It showed her breaking the window, reaching in to unlock the door, trashing the living room. We didn't catch every detail, but it was more than enough. She tried to claim she showed up drunk because she was heartbroken over what I'd done, and that the house was already trashed when she arrived. She looked like a total idiot. Fast forward to this morning, the thief was released on probation Monday. I think that's the term, not totally sure about the difference between probation and parole. The kids are in daycare because I'm going back to work next week. I left the house at 8 a.m. to drop them off and came back maybe 45 seconds after I locked the door. And there she was, standing on my front step. She'd obviously been watching, waiting to see when I left. She walked up to the door and started knocking and talking through it, saying she wanted to talk, that there were a lot of misunderstandings between us, that she just wanted to fix things, blah blah blah. One of the conditions of her release is that she cannot have any contact with me or my family. So I called the police. Again. This time, they showed up fast. I watched from behind my new window as 3 patrol cars pulled up and surrounded my house in under 4 minutes. They cuffed her and put her in the back of a cruiser. When I opened the door to give my statement, the officers were super kind. Meanwhile, the thief was back to yelling obscenities from the back seat. I called my lawyer, who wasn't surprised in the slightest, and he promised to update me as soon as he got word about the booking and what charges might apply. So yeah. That happened. I'm currently sitting at a Starbucks using the Wi-Fi because, even though I know she's probably back in jail, I still don't feel safe in my own home. Hi. Sorry this is so long, but it's been a roller coaster and I just needed to get it all out. I haven't even called my dad yet. I'm waiting until I have something to say besides, control your damn witch from hell. Update 6. The hamburger thief is not in jail. How do I know? Hi. She just drove past my house, in broad daylight. I called my lawyer. He said there's nothing they can do if she's just driving down the street. I live on a fairly busy road, it's not like we're tucked away in the woods. My street connects 2 major roads in the city. So we can't even prove she was intentionally passing by. And of course, my husband's out of town for work all weekend. So I'm home alone with the kids. He won't be back until Friday. My mom is also out of town visiting a friend, so we can't go stay at her house either. I have a friend who's coming over after work to stay with me. But seriously, today, our lawyer called the court to ask about all this and they told him it must have been an oversight in her file. I don't even know how that's possible, but okay. I'm fairly certain she's exactly what I've imagined all along, someone who's really good at pretending to be a sweet grandma. Anyway, I'll update again if anything else happens. Edit. I'm going to file a complaint against the idiot officer on Monday. If anyone else has done this before, please share your experience. Should I expect an actual response? Or will it be more like, thanks, we'll handle it and then nothing? By the way, my dad is officially separated. In our state, they have to be legally separated for 1 year before they can file for divorce. She had issues before, but never anything this blatant. This is definitely a whole new level of crazy. Honestly. I think that since she couldn't have kids of her own, she decided she wanted mine. And that's what triggered all of this. It's the only thing that makes any kind of sense to me. We can't move right away, we simply don't have the financial resources yet. But I'm starting a new job tomorrow, and moving is absolutely part of our plan. We just have to catch up first. Update 7. Hi, to anyone who also browses this subreddit and remembers the hamburger thief from a couple years ago, hello again. Don't worry, this story isn't about her. This one is about what happened that led me to leave my husband, and it happened just a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty sure we all know someone who's never satisfied with anything you do. Someone who always thinks they'd do it better. Update 7. You know that kind of person who never actually does anything, just complains about how you did it wrong? Yeah. That was my ex. With everything. That night, it was dinner. I had spent a good couple of hours making homemade meatloaf with hand-mashed potatoes. I was really proud of it. And, of course, with 2 little kids, I didn't eat as soon as it was ready. I fed the 2-year-old, made sure the older one ate, and by the time I sat down, my ex started questioning why I made gravy for the meatloaf instead of just using ketchup. He was like this about everything. Once, we had a full-blown argument because I made a cheese sauce for a broccoli rice casserole instead of using Velveeta. So naturally, this turned into another ridiculous screaming match. And right as he was shouting, my face started going numb, because I hadn't eaten all day and my blood sugar was tanking. I got up to go find my glucose meter to see if I could just eat my dinner or if I needed a glucose tablet first. And this man lost his mind. First, he started yelling at me for walking away from him while he was talking. When I told him I was going to get my damn meter, he started screaming, "Oh, how convenient. You need to check your blood sugar right when I'm yelling at you." He literally said that. I didn't even know how to respond. I told him, very calmly, that I'm an adult, and I'll check my blood sugar whenever I need to. Apparently, that was unacceptable. Because he snatched the meter out of my hands and smashed it against the wall, shattering it to pieces. I just stood there in shock. Then he threw away the case with the test strips and lancets. Opened the bottle of glucose tablets, and dumped those out, too. Then he threw the meatloaf in the trash. The one I'd spent hours preparing. I don't know if he did it just to be cruel or to make sure I couldn't salvage anything. But either way, it worked. I stood there for several minutes listening to him scream that I was faking diabetes just to get sympathy. That I only brought it up to make him feel guilty so I could manipulate him. All this, because he didn't have Heinz ketchup on his meatloaf. Then he looked at me and said, "Sit down. Shut up. And eat those disgusting potatoes, I guess." And I'm not gonna lie, I did. I don't know if it was the shock or the fact that I was seriously crashing from low blood sugar, but I sat down and ate some carbs. Then I put the kids to bed. And I went to sleep. He didn't say a single word to me that night. Not even the next morning before leaving for work. The next day, I got paid, and I spent every single cent on the deposit for an apartment for me and the kids. Hi. These last few weeks have been brutal. He's been nasty. I still don't even know how to start the divorce process here in Louisiana. But at least I no longer live with someone who thinks I'm faking a chronic illness I've had the entire time he's known me, just so I don't get yelled at over dinner. Edit, oh my god, I just wanted to tell someone how crazy this man is. Thank you for all the kind words and support. Update 8. Hi, just wanted to let you all know that, thanks to a suggestion from someone here, and with support from my lawyer and 2 police officers, I was able to re-enter our house and access the kitchen security footage. He didn't think to delete it. Honestly, I'd forgotten all about the kitchen cameras too. So much has happened since the whole hamburger thief saga. I'm betting he forgot too. That video? It was enough for me to press charges today. I don't know what'll happen next, since he fled the state to go stay at his mother's house. But right now? I feel good. I feel strong. I feel seen. The look on the officer's face while he watched that man destroy my medical supplies? Chef's kiss. Thank you all, from the bottom of my heart, for the support you gave me in my last post. I didn't feel very strong when I wrote it. But you all? You're angels. And for the first time, I'm starting to believe my kids and I are going to be okay. Update 9. This morning, I woke up to a bunch of private messages referencing this story. I had to go back and reread it myself. To answer the most common questions. Yes, we're divorced. Obviously. The kids and I are safe. The little one who was 2 at the time is now 4, and the oldest is about to turn 8. Life isn't super easy, but we're together, and they've never known anything but love. For those asking about the sudden change in my ex-husband's behavior since the whole hamburger thief situation, this is how abuse works. Love bombing, when the abuser overwhelms you with affection at first, is real. It's also real that the victim starts to believe they deserve that treatment. That they're lucky to have someone who loves them. It's heartbreakingly common. Because he wasn't yelling at me yet. He told me he loved me. He seemed wonderful and kind, even while doing everything he could to make me completely dependent on him. As the marriage went on, things gradually got worse. That incident, that night with the meatloaf, was the first time I was able to fully recognize that what he was doing was abuse. But looking back, the pattern was always there. I've done a lot of emotional work, and I can acknowledge what I went through without being triggered by comments anymore. But please, try not to invalidate abuse victims just because they didn't say the same things back then. That kind of mindset is exactly what traps so many people in extremely dangerous situations. He never went to jail. But that video, along with the fact that I pressed charges and his increasingly unstable behavior, was enough to grant me full custody of the kids and a divorce without having to wait the usual 2-year separation required by the state of Louisiana. He didn't even show up to the hearing. He's still living out of state with his mom. And we haven't seen him in 7 months.